determined, but my wish to sit down here with Bernardo made me sit here down with Bernardo. But then again, it is determined, right? It's not random. So that's also where you run into philosophical problems. So I think analytically, your point is very clear. I think just psychologically, we left the conversation saying that, I think we quoted Fred Matzer, and I got a question also. Tom Le Royan, 2231. Allow yourself to be played by life in the universe, which is an organism where each contribution is important. So this holistic organism, superorganism. But can you choose to disallow also? I mean, can you choose to disallow being played by the universe? That's sort of what rang with me.
A lot of people are not allowing themselves to be played by the universe. That, too, is a direct result of what the universe is, because those people are part of the universe. So the universe sometimes disallows itself to be played by itself. That's part of the natural unfolding of what is, what exists. It is such that this contradiction can emerge. Nature is sometimes self-contradictory. This is empirical.
I mean, we are going straight down the main road of Crazyville here, right? Nature is sometimes self-contradictory, but a contradiction is an expression, right? If I say, my car is not a car, right? I'm expressing something that is contradictory, but a car cannot be contradictory. It's either, it is the car. If there's a car, there's a car. If there isn't a car, if you're not experiencing car, if you're not cognizing car, there's no car, right? You can't say that car is not a car. If you are cognizing car, you're cognizing car, right? You might have an idea whether or not you should have the cognition, but that's just based on your own inner fabulations about the significance of your cognitions. If you're cognizing car, you're cognizing car. It's not necessarily in my control, right? It may change in the next second. But a contradiction is something that is built into an expression, not an observation. Right? He is completely full of shit, this Bernardo guy, right? He has, it seems to me, as they're sort of coming through the airwaves somehow here, right? It may just be me. He seems to be reveling in, what's the term? Reveling? In being mystic and cryptic. He likes when he can sound like he knows what he's talking about, but have a sense that people are a little confused and a little unsettled by what he says. Because that's a power. If you can confuse people but keep them listening, you have them in your grasp, right? You are in control. You have power. You have control. I would think that this guy, he's a control freak, Bernardokastrup, right? I mean, he has destroyed his ears because of a burglar alarm, according to his own, statements in earlier videos. That he has a burglar, and as far as I remember, it occurred twice to him. He screwed it up twice, and destroying his ears because of some extremely loud noise that this burglar alarm created, that he thought he was switching it off, and then it started loud noises and destroyed his ears, right? But why do you have a burglar alarm if you don't want to be in control, if you don't have some free will or all this shit, right? It's a control freak. One way to control people is to confuse them about their own understanding, which is also called gaslighting, right? So that they keep coming back to you to get understanding. You confuse them, And then they keep coming back to you for you to answer the questions, right? He has never said, you should think for yourself. This is just my philosophy. He doesn't say that, right? He wants to be the guy on the hill, the Jesus who has just been speaking to his mind daddy about how the universe works. And sometimes it's contradictory, but that's how it is, because it does what it is and is what it does, and so on, right? I have no trust in this guy.
Empirically obvious, right? And not only from a mathematical perspective, from those theorems of the 1930s, but empirically obvious as well. So the point is not that you don't choose. We all choose all the time. The point is there is no could have been. The could have been is a human fantasy. Again, the point.
No, but what he wants to get rid of his inner doubt about his own past, where he chose to do something that regret. It's about regret, right? He wants to get rid of regrets about what he did in the past. For instance, screwing up his burglar alarm because he's a control freak, right? He wants to get rid of that regret so he can say, it's okay that I have fucked up my ears, right? It was bound to happen. It was out of my control. It was not because I was a stupid control freak. It's because of my mind daddy, right?
Is that everything is ultimately determined, because the people who are very much into free will, they would also reject the notion that one's choices are random. The throw of dice. There is no meaning in that. If your choices are random, what meaning is in there? So people who are after free will because they associate with meaning, they themselves will immediately acknowledge that what they mean by it is not randomness. Therefore, every choice is determined. The thing is, the human intuition in this regard says the following: my choices are free if they are determined by me and not by nature at large. What people who are into free will, what they mean.
It's again, okay, he has come up with this so-called metaphysics, analytic idealism, about the story of this mind which is behind everything. And because that is the first mover, so to say, it does what it does, right? It is responsible for everything. It has to be. Otherwise, there's something either deeper level that is before that big mind that does what it does, or there's something wrong with the idea of the big mind. He cannot back up and say, maybe I was all wrong after all about this big outside mind, right? And he can't go beyond that big mind and say there's something before that. So everything has to dogmatically fit with the idea of this big mind. He has created this story, which is basically an imagination based on a category error, as I pointed out in my criticism of his ontology, right? And in my, maybe I should make a standalone video on this, but in my own ontology series, or my ontology series about my own ontology, in the part dealing with dualism, the 2/3 of that is actually a criticism of idealism, and in particular analytic idealism, and the lack of good philosophy and argumentation structure in it, which is a complete deal breaker, right? So maybe I should take that and make a really cohesive video on these particular problems of idealism, right? But he can't back out of it now, right? He has become the CEO of Mind Daddy, right? Or Essentia Foundation. And he has wedded his life to this matzah guy and this foundation where all the rich people can hide their money from the tax collector, right? He's bound to it. He's a slave of that system now. He's a slave to his own philosophy. He can't back out of it. He can't correct it and say, maybe there's something that didn't work there. There's criticism about this, that, and the other. Maybe I should go back to the drawing board, right? No. He's wedded to it now. And he'll defend it. Because, not least because he can't back out of it for these particular reasons, but his whole psychology is depending on it, right? He wants to get rid of regret about fucking up himself with whatever, right? Wasting his time in being a CEO or whatever, instead of doing philosophy or whatever you could be regretful about. But if you can come up with the idea that regrets is just a fantasy, so I'm trying to, force myself out of the regrets about the stupid shit I did, right? No, I think regret is actually very important. You keep doing stupid shit if you're not regretting something, right? I reflect on my bad decisions. Regret is sort of an emotional state where you say, I had another choice. I didn't take it. I regret it. Maybe I should. I can't go back in time and change it. But as in the now and in the future, I can try to use it not to make a similarly stupid decision, right? No, he wants to get rid of regret, and he wants to also, by getting rid of free will, get rid of responsibility for his own actions now and in the future. Be very careful with people like this, right?
By a free choice, is that the choice they make, let's say my free will choice is a choice I make, so it is determined, but it's determined by me. It's determined by that which I...
So here he's just confusing. He is making a shell game with the differentiations between determinism and free will, and he wants to have... He's not completely rejecting free will here. You have choices, but you don't have free will. But your choices are determined. And it's like, what the hell, man, right? Is this sort of compatibilism? That you have some free will and the rest is determined or whatever the fuck, right? If I throw a ball, right? I have to throw it. I have to will the throwing. But as soon as the ball leaves my hands, I'm out of control. The rest is determined by its initiation, by me, right? So no, when it leaves my hand and flies away, to the best of my understanding, it's out of my control, so to say. So it's out of my will. So the rest is potentially determined, right? So I can't say, okay, come back, ball, right? I can wish it all I want, I can try to will it all I want, but it's not going to happen. So yes, there are limitations to what I can will or what I can actually act and manifest in concordance with. If I try to will ball come back and ball is not coming back, well, there's no alignment between my preferred state and the actual observation of what is going on, right? So I can't will that. But that doesn't mean I don't have any free will at all, because I just threw the fucking ball, man, right?
I don't identify with my brain activity. I have never seen it. I identify with my conscious inner life.
Oh, you had never seen your brain activity. But isn't your so-called dissociation idea, a DID, dissociative identity disorder, whatever, isn't that based on observations of brain activity? Or reports about it, or whatever, right? You never seen, can you see your brain activity? No, you need your brain activity in order to see anything. So you can't see that which you're using to see that which you're using to see that which you're using to see that, right? It's again these circular, stupid arguments, man, right?
I identify with my preferences, my tastes, my goals, things that I experience from within. So if my choices are determined by my preferences, my tastes, my goals, then they are free will choices. Now, there are two arguments why even this doesn't hold water. One is There is no you separate from nature.
Oh, so now he's trying to dissolve himself. I actually don't really exist. I'm actually just a ripple that doesn't exist. There are ripples, but what my experience of me doesn't exist, because your ripple is an experience in me, and my ripple is an experience in you. So we don't exist. We are just dashboard versions of something that is really existing, which is just ripples. So basically, Bernardokastrup is a ripple that doesn't exist. Okay? So that's your starting point, apparently, right? And it's also actually the end point, which is more, sort of, I'm looking for a term, is the, where the wheels come off for me, right? Because if he says, I don't really exist, which I have seen him say or heard him say in another video at some point, right? He doesn't really exist, right? So if what I'm experiencing is not Bernardokastrup, but there's some ripple out there that is the actual Bernardokastrup, why the hell should I listen to him? Why the hell does he spend his time creating dashboard dials in me that doesn't really exist, that I can't use for anything, because they're not the real thing? It's just a ripple somewhere, right? Ultimately, according to his story. So he wants me to use my dashboard in order to tell me I shouldn't trust my dashboard because it doesn't really exist. It's this kind of mindfuckery that, I mean, be my guest, go use this philosophy. I just want to make sure that you accept that I don't want to have anything to do with you, if you align yourself with this kind of thinking, because it doesn't function for me, right? I can't work with individuals who say they don't exist, right? Or at least I have to be in fully understanding what you mean by saying existence and then does not exist. Because then your ontology is pure imagination. Because ontology is that which exists. So if you can make an ontology about that which exists and then tell me afterwards you don't exist. So something that doesn't exist creates an ontology about that which exists. That sounds fucking crazy to me, right? So when we are dealing with this level, it's as good as certain that it's all mental mindfuckery based on what the people who are stating it wants to be the case, based on their psychology, based on their habitual thinking, based on all sorts of imaginations and abstractions. They want to be the case. They want Santa Claus and rainbows coming out of the ass of unicorns and so on, right? Because it feels nice. It's just mindfuckery.
You separate from nature, or a me separate from nature, is merely nominal. It's an artifact of language. It follows the structure of language, but the structure of reality is not the structure of language. Language is defined for convenience, for communication, and not to capture and reflect the ontological structure of nature. That's not what language is about. So there is no you separate from nature. There is no me separate from nature. So there is no choice I make that is determined exclusively by the linguistic me. Because the me is just molecules in the ocean of nature. It's determined by nature. Another answer is, even if your choices are free in the sense of being always determined by your will, by your preferences, by your plans, who determines your will, your preferences, and your plans? Is it you? Of course not. If you could choose what you want, you would be the happiest person in the world, whatever your circumstances.
That doesn't follow. You could choose what you want. Why would you be happy? But that doesn't follow. Happiness is some kind of emotional state, right? I don't see why that follows. It sounds to me like he just makes up what he wants as it goes along. And he is so far removed from anything that I can experience in my everyday that he can basically come up with all sorts of bullshit that he can. I can't decipher whether or not it's bullshit or it's actually good philosophy. And there is no checks and bounds for this, so I have to categorize it as bullshit, right? At what point do we get down to the grocery store and look at tomatoes and start to fight about whether or not I can or you can eat that tomato? At what point do we do that? Because that's also a part of my life. Whether you think I have free will or not, I'm actually going and buying tomatoes and driving cars and so on, right? If I see a car, can I just, put my ass in it and drive away? How does it work? All this fancy, we are all a part of nature, and nature is everyone, and so on. Okay, so if we are all a part of the same nature, I can go to the southern end of the Netherlands, and break in, remove a window and sit in that living room there, and take a dump in the flower pot behind him, and take a piss on that Buddhist painting behind him, and so on, right? Why wouldn't I? I don't have free will. Don't blame me, right? Don't fucking blame me. It's like he wants to say, oh no, I don't have free will and you don't have free will either, but you are responsible for your actions. Yes, you're responsible for something that you are not in control of, right? Because you have to control people. You have to have some, there has to be government to control everything. But they don't have free will, but they're still in control. And, it's like, it's pure craziness, right? And it's also that it seems like when people like this or people are arguing in the similar fashion as Bernardokastrup does, it's, as I pointed this out before, but I don't think I have expressed it too clearly, right? But very meticulously in the beginning of the philosophy, there is a little step here, a little step here, like. But as soon as you leave into the cloud castle area, where you leave direct experiences behind, all of a sudden, all the big guns are out. Everything is everything, and I'm not existing, and there is ripples everywhere, and it's like everything is just, amplified to infinity of what the ability of making statements. Rather than in the beginning where you can actually go and do some empiricism, there he has to be careful because you can actually go and check. But as soon as he leaves reality behind, he can go and have whatever mind daddy he wants, right? That's also a sign of bad philosophy, in my opinion, because all philosophy has to be meticulous. And you should be able to go and check it, right? If you can't check it, why would you need it? Why would you want it? Right? At least it has to be clear in your philosophy when you leave direct experience behind and go into your cloud castles, right? And how you approach that from a philosophical standpoint of what you're actually allowed to do. He allows himself to go and do whatever he wants, basically, apparently, right?
You would simply choose to want precisely the circumstances you happen to have. We don't determine those. So our will is literally not free in the sense that we can't just change our will.
But free will is not just getting what you want. It's also about avoiding what you don't want, right? It's much more important to avoid what you don't want than getting what you want. But he's very materialist about it because I want this and I want that. I want money. I want a big, a burglar alarm, and I want a big house, and I want a Buddhist, partner, and I want to be the CEO of this, and 2 PhDs, and I want to write 100 books in a year, and I want to be the master of an Essentia foundation. I want to control the world in my big philosophy that is the best worldview of all time in the new world order of the rings of power. Rather than saying that free will maybe is avoiding you not screwing up, right? Rather than I want this and I want that, right? Which is apparently his focus point.
We fall in love for who we fall in love. We don't choose who we fall in love with.
No, but you choose whether or not you're going to hump it or not, right? Yes, the neighbor's daughter might be very cute and, attractive, a potentially nice partner. But that doesn't mean they're going to jump her bones, right? So free will is as much not doing what you want as doing what you want. He's saying, I can't get everything I want, therefore I don't have free will. I'm saying, I can avoid everything that I don't want. That I can do, right? And if you don't allow me to do that, you are the fucking problem. Whoever you are, who won't allow me to not interact with what I don't want to interact with, or what I want to choose not to interact with, even if I want it. We are getting close to something we could call ethics, right? Because at the end of the day, at the end of your philosophy, a big, shining, perfect moral principle should be there, right? He's so far removed from any idea of ethics, while at the same time, he's basically under the covers, between the lines, he's alluding to some ethics without any clarification of the philosophy he needs to go and be any kind of moral judgment, right?
Otherwise, we would all fall in love with the person who is available. Yeah. That's not how reality works.
What?
We don't choose.
What? What? You would fall in love with what is available? So if you're walking down the main street and there are 1,000 women there, you can fall in love with all 1,000 women or what? No, you can... No, but just because you can't choose your emotions doesn't mean that you can act or avoid acting on your particular imagination of choices. He is a fucking confused sophist, right? He is very, very, very concerned about getting rid of free will. Otherwise, he will have to face the music, right? He will have to face his own shitty past or whatever it is he's trying to get rid of, right? His regrets and the responsibility for what he's doing. He doesn't have the backbone, right? He's sort of some weak soy boy kind of thing that can't face reality. He wants to cushion himself in his, millionaire home and his Essentia foundation where he can sort of push away against people who don't conform to. He's cushioning himself in a world with people who are sufficiently crazy to not be critical of what he's saying, right? I mean, I guess there's a standard within that I am sympathetic to, which is, if you have a philosophy and you agree with somebody else on it, fine, go have your philosophy over there, right? But I want to do the same thing. You have to reject all of your actions that conforms with some kind of power structure that you, by not acting, lets them inflict their will on somebody else out there that you might disagree with, but you might inhibit their ability to criticize you. But it's just such a long chain of willing and free will and so on, that when it comes back to you, nobody can really see what is going on, right? And by trying to get rid of free will, it also takes responsibility away from those calling themselves government, right? So he doesn't have to, criticize any kind of government because they just boulders running down a hill, right? So it's people who take any step towards getting rid of free will, they want power structures to stay in place. Because it's the benefit for them that they are there rather than if they weren't there. And by rejecting free will, they can remove criticism of power structures so they stay in place, which is a benefit for them possibly, right? It's very complex, this. But it all comes back to whether or not you have the backbone to stand your own ground and be yourself and face the music of life, right? I don't want to be poetic about it, but it's to me it's a sign of weakness. It's a weak mentality. It's a weak backbone. If you want to get rid of free will, you are basically saying, I don't want to take responsibility for my life and all the other aspects of it, all the other consequences of it. And I'm not saying that the consequences are guiding my philosophy. I'm just saying, first of all, rejecting free will is bad philosophy, in my opinion. And that bad philosophy has these consequences. It's not like these are bad consequences, therefore I have to change my philosophy. Don't fall for that trap, right? Be careful that you're not making that mistake.
Choose our tastes. We don't choose our preferences. We don't choose even what we want to do in our lives. These things are chosen by nature.
Yeah, and I think
so what is this business of free will? What do people mean?
I'm starting to get you, and I'm just afraid that this will trigger again the same comment.
This Hansi guy, he doesn't understand what the fuck he's talking about. They're sitting there, rubbing each other's, Colgate smile, right? Oh, we are so.
But that's not a problem. I have something, I think, experientially to bring in. I mean, after a video, it rang with me, right? So I tried to just live it a bit for a month now, I'd say. And what I tried doing is stop focusing.
You tried doing, but you can't try doing because you don't have free will, moron, right? What I tried doing. Oh my fucking God. Oh God, man. These fucking crazy people, man. Oh, I don't have free will, but what I tried doing is it's so fucking stupid, man.
Focusing, thinking, attention on all the choices I can or cannot make in my life, but just more consciously be aware of how life unfolds, right? Just how and it relaxed. It can be. I had moments, not all, but I had moments where it felt extremely relaxing to just see, okay, this is what's now being played out, and what I can bring to it. But I know that's maybe not the right word. It's just conscious attention to just see and experience it. And that sort of got more value, valuable for me than the whole idea of me making the right or wrong decision. So it's also a shift.
Oh, so now it's a right or wrong, right? It's just a matter of listening. All of a sudden, it becomes about ethics now, right? Or morality, I should say, right? About morality. Now it's about right and wrong, right? It's so close. That's why I'm taking free will so seriously. Because the idea of right and wrong is just around the corner. If you don't have free will, nobody can fucking blame you for anything. And why would they come and blame you? Because they don't know if they can blame you. You could talk with Bernardokastrup and say, yeah, if I, smash your laptop, will you blame me? Well, Bernardokastrup is sure. How the hell would I know? I don't have free will, right? I might jump out and dance and embrace you and have sex with you instead, right? But it's everything points in this video points in the opposite direction of determinism. It all points in, they have free will. They're constantly doing things that would be a natural observation of what I would expect to happen if you have free will. And the more concern is that it's very deeply rooted with right and wrong. Right? And he basically says that. He's not possibly even aware that he's now venturing into ethics without having possibly, and I have never seen this guy doing any philosophical videos, right? He's just, a little bitch for to facilitate making it look like Bernardokastrup and the Essentia Foundation is some kind of authority on these philosophies. He's just a useful idiot, right? In my opinion, Hansi is a useful idiot, and Bernardokastrup is a crazy boy, right? Bernardokastrup have never, ever presented any epistemology, in my opinion, right? He has mentioned the term objectivity or objective, but in a way that I don't understand how he got to it, right? So I don't take his idea of objectivity seriously. And I have certainly never seen any ethics of any kind. He has made moral statements, but that doesn't mean he has an ethics, right? So if he hasn't presented any kind of ethics, I'm not taking his moral statements seriously, right? So if Hansi Boy here is venturing into ethics, I would like to understand what their definition of knowledge is, their definition of objectivity is, and their moral principle, and the ethics behind that moral principle, please.
Shift, I think at least, from focusing on free will and making decisions towards more consciously being present in the moment, right?
No, what these sick fucking determinists want, right? These woo-woo determinists, they want you to put your arms down or guard down and say, I don't have free will. What do I do now? Because I don't know what is right and wrong now, because I can't choose anything. I have to listen to my master, Bernardo, right? It's confusing you and disarming you and putting you down in a way so that you come back and listen to the priest who has been speaking with his mind daddy, right? Be fucking careful with these people.
And that helped me. I really like that.
I can share how.
But liking shit is not philosophy, dude, right? I really like that. Oh man, that's a great argument, right? I really like that. I really like that. Is that the best he can do? That sounds to me like he is on very, very loose ground here. And the best he can do is say, I tried it on for a few days and I like it. It's like, oh man, right? I mean, oh, what can I say, man, right? I mean, you are probably aligned with or in understanding of where I stand with this crusade, idealist crusade here, right? It's fucking crazyville, right? They are not coming back to any reality that I live in an everyday. Yes, you can do some ontology. Yes, you can possibly do some metaphysics, but you fucking have to come back to your everyday, which was your starting point, right? And if you stay there in your cloud castles, I don't give a fuck, right? As I pointed out, that those cloud castles, whatever they may be, they don't change the tomato, do they? Do they change the car or the roads or the rain, or the weather, or the trees, or the ocean. No, it doesn't. That's where I live in my everyday, so to say. So if you stay there in your cloud castle, well, bye-bye. I'm not going to live in your determinist cloud castle ribbleverse, right? I'm living among tomatoes and cars and bicycles and trees and oceans, right?
Oh, I apply this to my own life. I'm not saying that this is, I can't make an objective.
No, objective. Oh, please, you apply. Please tell me what is your life and how do you apply whatever it is you're applying. And objectivity, please explain what you're doing, right? You're staying in these abstractions as if you're doing something magical of some kind, but get down to reality. Show it. Show what you're doing. Are you just mind-fucking yourself? Or are you actually doing something in a reality that I can? Because if you're just sitting alone on an island, mind-fucking yourself, I don't really care, because then I don't have to engage with you. But if you want to engage with me at some point, potentially, I want to understand how you do things. So what can I expect to see happen, right?
Argument that this is the way to go. It's just my own way of living my life. For me, every choice I make, and we all make choices. Determinism does not say that we don't make choices. It's silly.
How do you know that other people make choices? How do you know that? How do you get to that? Is it an axiom you're working from? You have to state that, right? I'm doing a criticism of a video here, so I don't necessarily have to present my own philosophy. Then you would have to go to a video where I actually present my philosophy and how I would approach these things, right? Because I would say, I can't get to it. I can't know if you have free will or anything like that. He just says it as, we all have this and we all have that. How the hell does he do that? As if he's some kind of Jesus man, right? Some kind of God who knows everything. It's ridiculous. He should be aware of this. If anybody out there should be aware, is an idealist who says, I only have direct access to my own experience. And then he sits there without even blinking, saying, we all feel this and we all experience that. Right? Give me a fucking break.
They're always making choice. Every choice I make, for me, is a moment of self-discovery. It's a moment when I reflect and think.
Self-discovery? What the hell? You choose to touch a grass before. That was a choice, apparently. Touching grass is a choice for bernardokastrup. I would call it an action, but he calls it a choice. So whenever he makes a choice, it's an action where he touches something or eats something or fucks something or whatever he does, right? Or yells the words, stupid, or screw you, or something like that, right? That could be an action, right? That could be a choice, apparently, right? So he's self-discovering there, right? When he says, screw you. Is that self-discovery of some kind? Because isn't he reacting to something? Did he plan that he would discover something, 25 minutes into a video with Tim Mondlin, that now I'm going to self-discover something here. I'm saying, screw you. I'm self-discovering, right? Oh, I'm discovering so much. It's incredible. Stupid. Oh, man, I'm self-discovering.
I am the entity who is disposed to make this choice right now. Every single choice.
I'm supposed to make this choice? Then it's not a fucking choice. How can you put yourself in these self-defeating, what's they call these Mobius strip of argumentation? I mean, this choice was determined for me. You did. Oh, it's so fucking crazy. And Hansi boy here is so gaslighted, and he needs the money to make these videos, right? So he's going to lick Bernardo's ass as long as he pays him, right? Oh man.
choice I make is a moment of self-discovery. It's an opportunity for self-insight. It's a revelation, a continuing revelation of what I am, what I truly.
Okay, so that goes for everything. So when Adolf Hitler's henchmen killed 6 million Jews or whatever, they were just, self-reflecting or what, right? But so you can go on, right? I'm just self-reflecting, I mean, I'm just learning. I'm going to learn what's going to happen. I can't control myself. I have no way of saying, no, I'm not going to do that. No. Apparently, I'm determined to have this choice. So now I'm going to take a learning lesson of this. Yes. I'm just here to learn what the big mind wants me to do because I'm not responsible, right?
Truly am, which is not bernardokastrup. And that's how I see meaning in the future. It's the first time that nature is discovering.
So now we can see some meaning in the future, right? Future hasn't come to pass yet, right? I mean, it hasn't been the case yet, but he can see meaning in it, yeah. Oh, he's the prophet. He's the crusader prophet, right? The rebel that doesn't exist.
That it has those dispositions. It is the thing that makes those choices. Whether those choices are good choices or bad choices, particularly the bad ones tend to be more meaningful. When you make a
the bad ones. Okay, so now he is able to classify good and bad choices. How do you do that? How do you do that, right? Because you're very close to just violating or doing the Hume-Scissort gap without any clarification of how you do that. The what's it called in English? The irresponsible engagement in moral judgment is baffling to me, right? People who have done, I mean, he considers himself a philosopher. He has a PhD in philosophy, right? Though he has his pet subject, which is the philosophy of mind and ontology or whatever, right? But it doesn't mean he's not able to do some epistemology and some objectivity and some ethics in order to get to a moral principle. That should be high on the list before you venture out in the world and tell people about good and bad, right? If you haven't done the ethics and all the prior philosophy needed to get to ethics and arrive at a moral principle, then shut the fuck up about good and bad, please, right? I have no patience with that.
Self-destructive choice. Reflect upon it. You are the thing that has the disposition to make that choice. I've made many self-destructive choices.
A disposition to make that choice. Isn't that what you call free will? Aren't you just shrouding free will in some different worlds that has less of free will notion to it? You have a disposition to make that choice. He's getting so close he can to free will because he still needs it in order to say, well, you're responsible over there. Therefore, I can hunt you down if you criticize my philosophy and push the government on you and put you in a little cage if you don't behave, right? Has to be something you can appeal to, some kind of free will. Otherwise, he's just a boulder rolling down a hill, right? He doesn't want to be that stupid, right? Or that devoid of agency.
For a period of 15 years, I was
so
basically
long.
making self-destructive choices. So going forward, this notion,
Making self-destructive choices. There's a lot of philosophy wrapped into that statement, right? That isn't clarified. But self-destructive, what is that? I mean, isn't that a judgment of this is a bad choice of some kind? But if you have a disposition for that choice, then you're just doing that. Apparently, because you can't will not to do it, right? Because you don't have that free will. So if it happens, it happens. And if it's you shouldn't classify it as self-destructive, because that is an appeal to you should not do it. It's an appeal to that regret you just wanted to get rid of, right?
that free will and determinism are the same thing. They are not distinct. They're not even compatible, because for two things to be compatible, they first need to be two things. And what I'm saying is that it isn't two things. The first thing it gave me was this idea that going forward, every choice is a moment of self-discovery. And going backwards, the notion that there is no could have been eliminates regret from your life.
That's
There he
amazing.
said it. It eliminates regret. So it's a purpose-built philosophy. It's like, oh my God, it removes regret. Oh my God, I want to get rid of my regret. I really like this philosophy because it gives me the results I like, right? Oh my God, sis. Oh. He's just telling on himself here, right? He's building his philosophy around what he wants, the results. I think that people are very quick in the mind, and that goes for myself also, that if you see a philosophy, hear about a philosophy or a way of living or wisdom or something, very quickly you can get a judgment of where this will lead and what benefit it gives you, both maybe, economically and emotionally and psychologically and all this. It goes very fast. It goes so fast that you might not realize that your philosophy, as you're doing your philosophy and getting to this conclusion and that conclusion, your psychology has gone there already and planned it and need to go to that conclusion, because that's the conclusion your subconscious likes, right? Or maybe your conscious likes. Your not your lizard brain, but your cultural brain or something like that, right? So all of a sudden it becomes about getting to that result, the bias, rather than actual good philosophy. Philosophy should lead you where it leads you, not where you want it to go. Never be concerned about the conclusions. Always be concerned about the philosophy. It's not like philosophy, oh my God, it points in that direction, to that conclusion. Okay, I'm stopping that philosophy, going in another direction. Then you're biasing yourself to your conclusions that you want and avoiding those you don't want. But that doesn't make it good philosophy. It's exactly the opposite, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think also, just to people watching this, if you have intellectual objections, please comment and we can further discuss it. But I'd suggest...
Yes, well, let me put a link here, right? At some point at 6, I'll have a lot of criticism here. You can just go, feel free to quote me and reflect and deconstruct what I'm saying and, do with it what you want. Just take it seriously at least, right?
Live it for a while and see how it feels. And that of course is determined. That
see how it feels? Who cares how it feels? If you don't have free will, you can't choose to not have free will. I'm going to choose that I'm working with the idea that I don't have free will, but then you're using free will to live as if you don't have free will. You're implying it at least, right? Oh, man.
That you're now watching, that's where it gets crazy, right? But I really mean it. I mean, to approach it from that experiential.
Bernardokastrup knows that this guy is a useful idiot, right? And I don't mean it derogative. I mean it in a sincerest manner, right? Because it feels very much like he's in deep water here, Hansi Boy, right? Or Hans Bustra. He sounds like he's in deep water. He is not sufficiently on top of this in order to, and he's also dependent on the stream of money he needs in order to live his life, so he can go and buy whatever he wills to buy, right? Pay for his rent and so on, right? Because he probably wants to will that. If he doesn't go along with the political correctness of this Bernardo guy and his foundation, he's probably not going to sit there at the other end of the table, right? So he's going to suck his dick until as long as he needs to, in order to, right? It's just, it's artificial, this, right? It has to come across as, oh, it's a Q&A and we are discussing. It's like, it's something like if who's the foremost sort of the last guy who won the Tour de France or something like that, some big physical achievement of some kind, right? And then have some kind of Boy Scout, 12 years old, ask questions to that winner of the Tour de France, right? And then pretend that it's some kind of equal level of discussion of what it takes to win the Tour de France or whatever, right? It's the same kind of, it's just more difficult to decipher what is going on when we're doing this mindfuckery and mental philosophical abstraction thing here, right?
Roots, yeah. Bernardo, we had a question coming in and that I found important, or just more a remark on the 10 books video we did.
Okay, so there's a new topic here, right? Okay, so far so good. Have a nice day. See you in the next one.